Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, especially on days like today, to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. We had the host updates humming today. You want to be on there. You can get it quicker than Twitter, and you can comment on it right away on our 10 channels. This is the place for heat conversation, information, consternation, celebration. It's all there. 5 on the Floor, link in the description, and you can bypass the Apple upcharge. Also, check out Prize Picks. That's the official fantasy partner of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E, put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Prize Picks allows you to play up to 6 players together across the sports spectrum. You're going to want to play throughout the NBA playoffs. You got to give yourself a reason to watch. Go to prizepicks.com, use the code F-I-V-E, get something out of this season, get your $50, and have a Prize Picks winner. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the flow playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. Both of us were out here for exit interview day. That's where the players talk to the coaching staff and others behind the scenes, and then they decide whether or not they want to talk to us. So that's what we did today. Just finished up. You can find a lot of the content on Twitter, on Off the Floor, of course, but we're going to try to break it down for you with 5 takeaways from today. And then we're going to save some stuff because we need to do deep dive episodes on some of this to get us through May. Also, many of you are going to be wondering, when does Pat Riley speak? Apparently that's not going to happen over the next few days. Could be a week or two. He is going to speak to the media, but apparently wants some time to sort of collect his thoughts and see how everything plays out before he does. So when we have that press conference, we'll get several days of content out of that one. We're going to break down, again, 5 things that we saw today that sort of stuck out to us. The number one thing today was the person who was not in the room, which was Jimmy Butler. Ira from the Sun Sentinel was asking a lot of Jimmy Butler related questions. The players, some of them got into it a little bit. Some of them seemed like they really just didn't want to touch it. Surely they were coached a little bit on this. I mean, guys are allowed to say what they want, but they're told that the question is probably coming. I thought the most interesting answers as far as the Jimmy Butler stuff and what this season was came from Erik Spoelstra and Tyler Herro, actually. Erik Spoelstra, on his part, acknowledged the difficulty of the season, something he was not really willing to do during the season. Spoke about how the last 6 weeks of the season was really where he kind of felt he had a handle on things to a certain degree. I think it's obvious that Spo was personally hurt by what went on this year. We knew about that. Jimmy calling him out, Jimmy not being available, Jimmy leaving a shoot around, Jimmy not making a plane, all that kind of stuff that went on. He, again, didn't want to address it during the season. Today, I thought Spo was more serious maybe than he's been in the past. He spoke about, with the criticism, bring it on. He spoke about the last 2 games being an embarrassment. They were. There's no way around that. He spoke again about being sort of irrational, that they thought that they could compete in this series. But he also didn't make any apologies either. I think it was a sort of a combination of both. And then on the other end, Brady, I thought there was the thing that stuck out to me from Tyler, and we'll get to maybe Bam in a separate part of this, and another thing with Tyler that he spoke about. The thing that stuck out to me about Tyler was he said about what he needed to work on this summer, and he said closing games because someone made it look easier than it is, and we know who that someone is. And he also spoke about how he spent the entire offseason expecting to get his lowest usage rate and playing off the ball, and then everything switched, and he ended up having his highest usage rate. And that's interesting to me in this sense, one of Jimmy's complaints was that the offense had tilted to the guards during the preseason. And Tyler was basically saying, I was willing to play off the ball and play off of Jimmy and all of that. So that stuck out to me too. So just in the context of the Butler stuff, what jumped out to you today?
I mean, what jumped out to me is that nobody really wants to comment on it. Nobody wants to talk about it. And the fact is that they already commented on it. Most of these guys have had answer these questions time and time again a few months ago. So then this is kind of the finale of it, where they're just kind of asked about it one last time. Probably honestly, it won't be the last time. I'll probably ask again next season, but it's kind of a realization of what this season was. And it's hard, I think, to take these answers, whether it's like, they don't want it to sound like an excuse, but also don't want to not recognize what it did to the locker room and how, I think a lot of the veteran guys that kind of stood out, how they were kind of mentioning how, Spo and Bam just kind of had control of the locker room this season over all of it, because it was so chaotic. And as much as they publicly, every time they go to a podium or go to, with a mic in their face, they're going to kind of downplay everything. But behind closed doors, I mean, it was a lot to handle. I thought, as you mentioned, I thought Tyler was kind of the most interesting because he did mention that. I thought that was the most, genuine, just honest answer he could have given about the fact of closing games, that it really is tough. And it's kind of what happened a lot this season, where they had big leads and weren't able to control them. And that's what happens when you don't have a guy that's able to slow down the pace of the game, gets to the free throw line, and do all the things that Jimmy did late in the games. And I think there was a little bit of a realization of that. But 100% Tyler. I thought it was interesting what Tyler was talking about. He said he was talking about his role coming into the season, as you mentioned, playing off the ball. He mentioned about being kind of the lowest usage rate because Terry specifically and Jimmy were supposed to be on the ball to them coming in. And Tyler was going to kind of be a decoy guy, off the ball, catch and shoot shooter. And we see what happened with Jimmy, and we saw what happened with Terry Rozier. And it just kind of all turned on his head. So he was kind of mentioning the fact that he was finally willing to kind of take a back seat in this offense and not worry about the personal stuff, as he mentioned on Media Day. And then he mentioned it ended up turning into what his best season of his career, averaging 24, 25 points a game, being an all-star, winning the three-point contest, all that stuff he was getting into. It is just an honest answer of what this all led to. But and then you have answers from guys like Nico that was he's like, yeah, we're just really happy for him. Like, well, I mean, he's happy for you. He was kind of one of the few guys that was close to him on the team. And he was kind of mentioning it had to be tough on Nico. I think that was an interesting one because Jimmy's the one that kind of really put him on the map on this team and propped him up and did all this stuff. And then now they're at feuds and Nico can't really pick sides, but obviously he has to side with his organization. But I thought there was a lot of honesty with that answer, but I just feel like this is kind of the finale of kind of being constantly asked about this whole Jimmy situation.
Yeah, and I think that will start to go away now. This was sort of the last time. These questions get asked at these press conferences because you're trying to sum up the season. You're trying to characterize it as what it was. There's no way to get around the fact that those weeks were unusual, that it created inconsistency with this team. It led to a trade that they didn't expect before the season. It also doesn't excuse the overall performance for the season. I think there's a combination of both. You can say you were affected and also say what we had was not good enough. Even Spo acknowledged we don't think we were competing for the number one seed, even if we'd had him. So I think we've tried to, again, put this into some perspective. This was a tough season. It was. He made it tougher. We can argue again, and I always say this, about whether or not the front office's actions played into it, and everything else. But the reality is they had a star player that they were counting on for one reason or another, and he did not want to perform for them. He didn't want to honor his contract, and they had to deal with it, and they had to deal with it on a day-to-day basis where the players and oftentimes were the last to know. They were like, okay, is he going to be here today? Is he not going to be here today? And how does that affect my role? So I think at this point now we can kind of put it to bed. Jimmy's in Golden State, and obviously he's trying to get to the second round of the playoffs, may do that very soon here, and we'll see how far they go in the Western Conference. But at this stage, the questions about Jimmy are going to be asked now to Pat, okay, whenever it is that he speaks. But other than that, I think that the players are pretty much done with it. Number 2 today, a lot of stuff we could get into, but I thought Bam more in some discussion here, because he spoke about the difficulty of kind of being in the middle. He didn't want to seem to want to get real personal about it, but he also said some things that I thought jumped out to me as far as, him maybe having more of a voice here. He spoke about how he was asking or begging, the word he used was begging Spo to play Ware more earlier in the season. Spoke about how Ware has sort of defensive player of the year potential. I guess he's going to be competing with Bam and others for that. We saw Ware, struggle in the postseason. That wasn't unexpected. But then Bam also was asked about personnel, and he said, I'll leave that to Pat. What do you say? If he doesn't duck you or something like that. He was making a joke. But what did you take out of Bam's overall presser today?
That he was joking in that comment that you mentioned, but being dead serious about his joke. Like, that was like one of those things where it was honesty. I mean, I thought he was more honest, honestly, in the last press conference after game 4 of the first round, where he mentioned about, there's changes to come, and he kind of hinted at that. And when he was asked about it, he expanded upon it and said, it kind of hinted at the fact that is needed, that he asked Pat that question. That's not for, him to figure out. He wants Pat to kind of be able to come back to Bam with that specific answer. And I think that's needed. I mean, when you talk about Bam having a voice with this team, it's not just in the locker room, but it's having input with the organization. It's being able to kind of press, certain guys higher ups and being able to say, like, we need to improve here. We need to get a guy here, just like Jimmy was doing over the course of the time. And yes, Bam was still a consultant, I think, in those past years with Jimmy, but I mean, this is a different level of it now. I mean, with the situation that's at hand, he is the voice, he is the captain, he is all these things. So I thought that was a good thing for Bam to kind of put that out there. I think he said, I want to win. I think he's kind of at a point now where he's kind of sick of the mediocrity. Like, he knows what this roster needs. So it's good. I mean, this is a good starter to the offseason before obviously the Pat Riley press conference comes around and all that kind of takes all the headlines. But I think this is necessary. I think him having that voice and having the confidence to kind of say that type of stuff it's what's needed right now.
Well, I think what others are going to say too is what's needed is some improvement in his game in some ways. I know Coop asked the question about 3-point shooting. He said he need basically be a pressure release, essentially. He didn't need to go in with a certain number of shots he needs to take. There was a lot of conversation today about the Bam Ware pairing, and it's clear that they're going to go into the offseason with an emphasis on that. I mean, unlike last offseason, we're like, are they going to play together? We know they're going to play together now. So now they sort of need to figure that out. And I know, again, some fans are going to be like, well, they need to get more from Bam offensively, and the organization is always going to push back, particularly Spo, on that and say everything he does defensively. The defense collapsed against Cleveland too. This is a side note. We don't need to get into this in any great depth, but it was interesting to me that Kyle Anderson gave voice to this, that one of the issues in the Cleveland series was that Darius Garland was off the floor in games 3 and 4. That Spo said it too. I know. Spo said it too. And then the defensive rating backs it up, but that essentially the lineups that Cleveland threw out there in games 3 and 4, they really weren't prepared for.
And then no one to attack in those lineups.
Right. And which is funny because it goes back to the conversations that were had after game 2, where Tyler snapped back at Garland about, him saying that we were picking on him, but essentially it looks like the Heat were picking on Garland. And then they couldn't do that anymore. And again, it's on the Heat for then losing by like a combined 100 points in the next 2 games because they couldn't figure it out. But it was funny to hear Tyler Anderson just literally say that. I appreciate his honesty on that. All right, number 3, let's get to Tyler here real quick. And then after the break, we'll get to a couple of these other ones. The Tyler comment that's going to jump out the most, other than someone made it look easy closing games, and I need to work on that. And what he emphasized going into the season was the 2 things. One is he snapped back on the Athletic report that he said that he needed Jimmy to win. He said he would never say that it was basically a tense issue, essentially him saying at the time of when it happened, not now. Okay. Now this question was asked, I guess, after game 2, prior to game 3. Tyler went on another account that he has on a social media service and basically called the reporter who quoted him or took him out of context as a goofy. He didn't get that in depth today, but he did acknowledge that was his, that was his account. And so, Tyler's always going to keep it honest, publicly as much as possible. We know, that the Jimmy thing was hard on him in a number of different ways, personally and professionally, but he made it clear again. I'm not, and this is why I was careful when we did those podcasts, because again, context matters. That he would never say, he says, basically we could lose 82 straight games. I would still never say that I needed somebody else to win. So I think we can put that one to bed right now. But the comment that's going to get the most attention is he was asked about the contract extension, which we've also done episodes on. And he said that, and I guess Heat fans could take some solace in this, it's not going to be a Jimmy situation going to camp. Because he said that if it doesn't happen by this October, it's okay. But then he also said, but then in a year, it'll just cost more. Now, there is a reason he's saying that, because he can earn more in an extension if he waits. This was the same that happened with Bam a few years ago, but Bam took the money at the time. But that also seems to indicate that Tyler is expecting to get the max of whatever it is in those 2 years. So I do think if the Heat come to him with a below max contract this October, say something in the $35 to $40 million a year range over 3 years, as opposed to the $50 million a year range that he can get, that I don't think it's going to be received with yes. Not at first. That's how I took that comment. We'll see how that goes. But I guess the one positive is they don't look like they're going to have another catastrophic, angry player about not getting an extension. Okay, it looks like it'll be managed one way or the other. I just don't know if the Heat are going to get their price if they decide to go in a little bit lower if they try to do it this offseason.
100%. I mean, the interesting one's going to be the Pat comments on it specifically, but I think this is just a totally different situation. This is not going to play out like that. It's obviously a much younger player. It's not somebody that's, seeking kind of one of the last contracts of their career type, extension. This is just totally different. And I think there's more of a willingness to kind of play it out into next season to get the more money. This doesn't feel like the Bam one. The Bam was at the time was trying to get that initial contract extension. That was around the time I think they were talking about Giannis as well, which is funny to kind of loop back around, as I'm sure we're going to do Giannis podcast. That'll never actually happen. But I just don't feel like this is that situation. I honestly do think this is going to be one where maybe it does drag out a little bit and then it does end up kind of falling into next summer. It kind of, that's just the way I kind of view that Pat's going to deal with it, and the front office is going to deal with, is where they're going to push it off. I think that's always going to be the way. With the way this roster looks right now and kind of the unclear direction of this team right now, whether they're going to get a guy or they're going to go fully youthful, they can't make that decision right now, and I don't think they will. So we'll see how it plays out. But I thought Tyler handled it in a joking manner, like he kind of usually does with serious situations like this. So I just thought that was fun.
Yeah, and Pat may say again, we don't have to do it this year, right? He said that last year about Jimmy. But I don't think Tyler's going to be missing any flights or walking out on shoot-arounds. I just don't think we're headed towards that. All right, we'll get into two more things we took away, quick takeaways from Heat exit interview day. Again, no Riley today, so we'll wait on that one, and we'll have more episodes for you over the course of the next week on things that happened today. We'll deep dive on some of it from a basketball perspective. Before we do, make sure that your home or place of business is protected. Hurricane season always around the corner. Reach out to Danny and his team at AllPro Construction Builders. You can find them at AllPro Construction Builders on Instagram or allproconstructionbuilders.com. 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. Again, Danny and his team, this is a family business. Huge Miami Heat fans. They'll give you a free estimate, but beyond that, they'll also give you 5.5% off your entire order if you mention 5 Reasons or 5 on the Floor or 305 Guys. They sponsor all of that for us. Support local businesses and get your home or place of business protected. It's AllPro Construction Builders and allproconstructionbuilders.com. I forgot what number 4 was, so educate me. I know what number 5 is.
Well, are you talking about basically the contract extensions? I mean, the guys kind of going into next.
Let's get into that. See, we're in off season form already. Couple of things. Davion Mitchell spoke today. He said he wanted to be here. He did say that kind of, but he also said he needed to wait to talk to his agent. And there was a lot of conversation about his offensive improvement here. I do think he's a perfect fit for here. I do know that the organization wants to retain him. I do know that they'll give him a qualifying offer. We will see what the offers are when this happens. If another team decides that he can be as perfect a fit in their system as the Heat have shown that he can be in theirs, then he's going to get a significant offer. Do I think he's going to get an offer that he can't match? No. I do think Davion Mitchell is going to be back, and I think Ty goes to the home team here, and probably he will return. As far as the other guys that are up for contracts, Alec Burks spoke today. He did say he wanted to return. I could see him returning on a minimum deal. If he's comfortable with that, then I think that likely happens. Duncan Robinson, we're going to get into the next part. He is going to the last year of his contract, but has a partial guarantee. He didn't speak to the media today, which is odd for Duncan. I may be wrong about this, but I can't remember that ever happening on an exit interview day. So I'm not sure if he just thought he had nothing to say or didn't want to answer specific questions or had some other commitments. I'm not sure. Again, this is optional. They're allowed to skip it, but he didn't speak today. Was there anybody else who's up this year that we need to talk about?
I think that's pretty much it. Davion Mitchell is the most important one. I mean, that's the kind of the core one of this. He kind of said like he doesn't want to talk about the specifics of because there's just so much unknown moving forward. That's what all these guys are always kind of coached up to say in these press conferences, because obviously you're not going to commit to returning to Miami if you can get a higher contract elsewhere as they kind of work the market in the offseason. But honestly, I think my initial thoughts on this, and maybe we're wrong, we've thought guys would return in the past and guys end up signing elsewhere. But like I kind of using Gabe Vincent as the model from last season or a couple seasons ago, where he ends up getting $11 million a year over 3 years. Is Davion Mitchell going to get more than Gabe Vincent was coming off the year he was having with Miami? I don't think so, especially considering I think Davion's more of a fit guy where he has to fit into a good team. I think that's what's been kind of the obviously, I'm not calling Miami a good team right now, but I think it's a system thing. They just have to work and, good coach, good system. And I just think he is back. I think it makes most sense for both sides. I think Miami wants him back, obviously. I think Heat fans want him back. I think out of anybody on this team, aside from your top guys that showed grit, the want to win, like all of this stuff, it was Davion Mitchell. I don't think they get in the playoffs if Davion Mitchell isn't on this team. They keep parading like these play-in wins as kind of like the core of this season. Those don't happen without Davion Mitchell. He was huge this season. I think they need him back, whether it's the direction of this team is to go for a top guy coming in or otherwise. I think they need him on this roster. And I think there's going to be a reasonable price on the table for Miami, to get him back to return.
All right, we're going to handle this number 5, but I want to get to the young players in number 5. So just because I mentioned that Duncan didn't speak today, I should mention the 2 others who did not. Terry Rozier, that's not surprising, but remember he is under contract for next year. So unless they trade him, he's going to be back for training camp, earning $24 million last year. He did not earn his incentives, so we know that, but he would be back in that case. And the other guy who didn't talk today was Andrew Wiggins. Now, Andrew is someone who doesn't, speak a lot to the media or speak particularly loud in these situations, but coming off the playoff series that he had, I think it would have been good to have heard from him today. He didn't duck the media during his time in Miami prior to that. Again, under contract, 2 more years, $30 million roughly per year. Somebody we're going to be discussing a lot in the offseason as a possible trade candidate, or if he's not, how they make it work a little bit better, more consistently than it worked. He had some moments, 42-point game, 30-point game, but also really sort of bombed out in that playoff series. So we didn't really get to hear if it was the ankle or anything. In fact, he was not really discussed. I actually raised my hand to ask Spo a question specifically about him, but they didn't get to me during that period of time. All right, number 5 here, and then we'll close, and then we'll do a lot more as we go forward, is the young players. Pelle Larsson said he's going to play for the Swedish team in Eurobasket. Jovic said he's going to play for his team, which is a Serbian team. And obviously he got short-circuited a little bit last year by the injury he had. He did say he'll have more time to work on his game this offseason, hopefully not another injury. He criticized himself for his own lack of consistency. Nico tends to take things pretty hard and is very honest about this sort of stuff. Kel'el Ware was asked what he needs to improve on this offseason. He said it's the same, get stronger. We've talked about that. The question is how he'll play with increased weight. They put weight on him. He felt he had a good rookie season. He feels he has a lot left to learn. I don't know if we'll see him in Summer League or not. We did see Jaquez last year. I do want to mention Jaquez, though, too, because last year he spoke about coming back as a knockdown shooter and a lockdown defender. Those things did not happen. I asked him specifically about his drives, and he talked about teams crowding him a lot more. Your overall thought on, and he admitted this, he said the season was embarrassing. Did he say embarrassing or frustrating? I can't remember which word he used, but it was very self-critical.
He said humbling.
Humbling, yeah. Thank you. Your overall thought on those 4 young players in particular?
Yeah, so I'll start with Jaime. I thought that was the most honest interview from Jaime that I've seen, just because I thought he was just pretty upfront about his season, about what kind of went down. I know Spo mentioned, previously, today he mentioned that he had 4 stomach flus throughout the season. He had, the ankle, whatever. He had a bunch of things along the way that have messed him up. But there was accountability that none of that was really a factor. I think he put it on himself that it was the fact that teams were daring him to shoot and he wasn't able to kind of knock down outside shots. As you mentioned about the drives, teams are loading up on his drives. Spo mentioned as well that they're shading more help toward him on those drives, and it just it needs to be better decision making in those areas of the court. it was just clear slippage, I feel like, in a lot of areas. So you kind of mentioned the need to kind of recalibrate a little bit, go into the offseason with just, just fresh mindset, start over, work on the shot, work on everything as a whole. I really do believe there is, when we talk about guys like Terry or these other guys struggling, like there is a pathway for Jaime, I do believe, to get back to a functional NBA player. Like this isn't one of these cases where, everything just fell off and he's been scouted and it's over. I really do believe there are ways, but it's going to take a long offseason of working and drilling a lot of these things that we're talking about, because he has the capabilities of doing it. He does. That he talked about the placements of the ball on a shot. I do think this is a case of a guy that's overthinking a lot of things, and that's what leads to, guys that are shaky shooters end up becoming, even worse shooters. I think it's because you start overthinking a lot of it, and when your defenders are really daring you to shoot those shots, you're going to be even worse than three. So we'll see what his offseason looks like. Kalel, I mean, he's going to just shoot you straight in a very short answer. He's going to, try to get stronger, all that stuff, work on his all-around game. I do believe that. Yes, he has to improve a lot of stuff, offensively, but there's nothing more important than just working on his body, than just getting stronger, all that stuff, lower body, being able to not, box out, do all that stuff in the low post. That's ultimately what's going to take him to the next level. You have a guy like Nico, as you mentioned, that was completely hard on himself over the last few weeks after this injury. He kind of mentioned, I think he's totally right about the fact, though, that consistency is his number one issue. He has the skill set. He has the talent. He has everything involved with that offensively. It's just about doing all of those things that he has at a consistent level. He shot the ball really well earlier in the season. It kind of fell off, obviously, toward the end of the season where the injury happened. The finishing around the rim, the ball handling, like all that stuff. I think there's just needs to be a more consistent of knowing what you're going to get on a night-to-night basis. I thought it was it. I asked him about kind of what his offseason may look like this time compared to past offseason, and he did mention this is probably the clearest he's been in an offseason where he can just work on himself, where it isn't an injury recovering from, where it isn't summer league he has to get thrown into, where it isn't the Olympics he's getting thrown into and then dealing with an injury, where now he has about 3 months until about the beginning of August or late July, where he has to go and practice with his national team. So this will be an interesting offseason for him as well. So I just think as a whole, a lot of different scenarios for these guys, coming off a rookie season for Kalel or Nico, just kind of tuning up his game, or Jaime having to revolve his, renew his entire package of the offseason. It's just going to be a long offseason. This is the beauty of getting knocked down in the first round. You have a couple extra months to work on your game. So it's time to put that to use.
And the other thing is, we don't know how many of them are going to be here. That's the other part, and we're not going to know that for a little while. The Heat can make trades as of today with other teams that are out of the playoffs, but I wouldn't expect anything anytime soon. And again, we'll get more answers when Riley speaks. Wanted to collect his thoughts. That's what we were told. See how this plays out, but there is the anticipation of a Pat Riley end-of-year press conference. So we covered a lot here. We will get into more depth on this stuff as we go. Feel free to subscribe to Off the Floor. That helps us give you content and also support our sponsors. AllPro Construction, Builders, Prize Picks. Use the code 5. Have a good one, everybody.